Okay, hopefully the screen is recording. So before we get started, I just wanted to review some things about Photoshop since this is many of our first time using it. So if you ever feel like, oh, I do not know where half my things are, go to your window and go to Workspace and you can arrange it for photography. This generally makes things the way you need it to be. So up here at the top where it says Photoshop and we have the Apple button, etc. This is your overall Windows dialog box. So we have a lot of drop-down menus that if you can't access specific locations on the side, you can probably access them through dropping down. The File button has things such as Open, Save, and it's going to have some other things, but mostly Open and Save is the ones that we use. The Edit window has things such as Copy, Paste, Undo, and Redo, so that's definitely important in case you start messing up. And as we keep learning about Photoshop, we'll utilize things such as a fill, warping, and etc. Our image dropdown has the most things we might probably use today, which is really that it also has a drop-down menu for adjustments. So if you can't find everything on the right side of your screen at your adjustment panel, you can do it by going to Image Adjustments and opening any of these, such as levels or exposure, will open by doing that. In addition, we have some things like auto tone, auto contrast, and auto color. I definitely recommend that you play around with these, right? Just see what they do, for example, that. But ultimately, I want you to learn the tools of Photoshop, and honestly, those are pretty wonky. In addition, and also importantly, we have our image size, our canvas size, and our image rotation, in case you want to rotate your image at all. Those are the main three, other than the adjustments drop-down that you would be using under image. For layer, there's not a ton that we'll be utilizing today, but new fill layer and new adjustment layer are things you might want to get familiar with. Specifically, new adjustment layer is another way of creating an adjustment layer, such as this. It's just if you can't access it, it will create it over here. Both options, I just showed you how to do an adjustment layer. Just so we're all on the same page, the other option is by going here to the right side of your screen where the adjustment window is. Type, we're only going to use it once we start learning the text tool, which is not today. Select, if you select something, for example, using this selection box, then you would go to select. You can do things like deselect, inverse, etc. So we're going to deselect because we don't need anything selected. Filter. These are not the filters that we want to use today, but ultimately there are some cool things that you can do with these filters. We'll be learning about that in graphic design. 3D, nope, not touching it. View, if you want to see some extra things such as a grid on your photo, or other things, you can definitely go to show. Most of the things in view you do not need to use today, so don't worry too much about it. And then window is where you go again if your workspace is not set up correct. You can go down to workspace, or if you want something specific to pop up, you can do that by clicking any of these options. If we go over here onto our left side of our page, this is our toolbox. So the main ones we're going to be using today is the move tool right here. Wonderful. The crop tool. Awesome. Whoop. Which blending tool is this? The spot healing brush, which is great for blemishes. The clone stamp tool, also good for blemishes. And then maybe this move tool and the zoom in tool. Most of the other things you're not going to be using today. Now, our right side is pretty simple and straightforward. At the top, we have the histogram, which is once again showing the data of our images. But also we have our adjustment windows that has our exposure adjustments on top, our color adjustments in the middle, and finally our funky fresh adjustments on the bottom. Lastly, on the right side, we have our layers window, which shows all of our layers, which is right now just our background layer. Then the delete layer, copy layer, group layer. I believe that this is adjustment layer, adding layer masks, and layer styles. You really only need to know delete and copy for today. So that's just a quick overview of your workspace. Now let's get started by quitting.